friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast. I'm here, as always, with my friends David and Easton. How are you, fellas?
Hey, how are you? Doing good.
I am doing great as well. I know this is opening. We're just past opening weekend for Inside Out 2, the new big Pixar movie that has been so highly anticipated. You both have seen it. I have not yet. So I'm not doing as well as you guys have because I think you guys, we're going to get into this a lot here in a second, but just generally speaking, super pleased, pleasantly surprised, met expectations. Just really quick, give me the quick version before we dive deep.
Well, overall, yeah, I got to be pleased. I mean, I'm very pleased. I'm pleased that it's done so well. I had a great time. I thought it was good. How I compare it to other Pixar movies and how I compare it to Inside Out 1, I'm not sure yet, but compared to what's been out in the past 2 or 3 years, this is a huge hit because we've had kind of even though I've seen everything, it's all good. This is so much better than what they've put out the past 3 or 4 movies. So very encouraged.
You agree, Easton?
I agree. Overall, 2 thumbs up for this one.
Right. And I think most people, it's the biggest box office opening for Disney in a long time for an animated movie, especially for Pixar. I think only maybe Super Mario Brothers and Barbie have had bigger openings since COVID for animated or that sort of family film. So that's really encouraging, and it seems like it's not slowing down either. So this is going to be one of those awkward episodes where we talk about it a little bit, but y'all try to dance around because I haven't seen it yet. I'm planning to go tonight. But don't hold back to me. It's fine. It's fine. I'm a big boy. I can deal with it. But if you haven't listened, so this could be safe for our listeners too. If you haven't seen it yet, this will be a safe foray into talking about it in generalities and kind of what it means for Disney in general. So it's exciting. I'm really, really happy to hear that Disney's got a hit on their hands again. And then you'll have, you assume that Deadpool and Wolverine's going to be a big hit later on too, so that may be 2 big summer movies for Disney to kind of get the momentum going. Which brings me to the first thing before we get right into Inside Out. We were talking before we got on here. I found a Motley Fool article that actually wrote, "Hey, 4 reasons to buy Disney stock right now, like there's no tomorrow." It's about $101 right now. It's down a little bit today. But the premise of the article is it's already historically low. It's kind of, you usually want to buy something when sentiment is not great. This is a great weekend for Disney as far as money goes. It seems like they might be stemming the tide and turning the tide a little bit in terms of maybe getting the box office mojo back. What do you guys think? Do you think if you had money to invest, and I know this isn't an investing podcast, it's a Disney podcast, but do you feel like we've weathered the storm of the worst of Disney over the last 3 years, given the cross section of politics and just dud after dud at the theater and Disney Plus kind of sputtering, the management turmoil, just like this perfect storm of negativity that's turned into this really lackluster business model that's made this stock kind of a dud for the last 25, 30 years. What do you think, David?
Well, definitely it's amazing to see it just blow past the expectations. I know that I was way more than even the box office groups that predict what's going to be, and not just Disney, but people that predict what box office openings are going to be. Those websites, they were way under what this movie has done. So it's really interesting to go, what was it? Why did people go to see this and they didn't go see Wish? What happened? What was it? Nostalgia for the first film? Was it word got out of the content of the movie or something about that made people go and then made other people not go to other things? I don't know. It's just blown past everything everybody thought it was going to be. And so I thought it was going to do well, but it's amazing how well it's done, way beyond expectations. I think it was really interesting what you said with the stock being up, and that it's a great time to buy because you'll pick up one article that will say this is the lowest Disney stock has been since so and so. That was Disney stock drops below $100 a share. Then now it's a great time to buy. It's it's up and down. And I was telling you that sometimes if you watch Disney content, it's it feels like is this the worst? Is this the worst time to be a Disney fan? Because it's like up and down, and you feel this great divide between the fan base of, is Tiana's Bayou Adventure a good ride, or is it the worst ride they've ever done? Is this Star Wars movie good, or is it the worst thing they've ever done? It's like these great extremes that just. I mean, I just like the past 2 weeks, I've just had to stop watching things because it's like I love this stuff, but this war between the fan bases can just be so caustic that I can't enjoy it. Like, and everybody has opinions, and I have my opinions, but after a while, it's like, man, the joy's just getting sucked out of everything. And I do think a lot of that. I still don't understand the upper management of Disney, some of the choices they make. Because I would think they would know how they can make movies, they can make shows, they can do things without creating this stuff. It's almost like they want to create all this disruption. I don't understand it.
I think the evidence for that is Inside Out 2, right? There isn't a lot of objectionable you haven't heard, at least I haven't heard yet, and y'all have seen it. There's nothing in there that's like, they've almost intentionally stayed away from it, which shows you maybe that's the recipe for success. Maybe people don't want controversy.
I think honestly, people want to go to the movies most of the time. Not everyone. Most people want to go to the movies and see a good, entertaining film where somebody faces a conflict that they can understand and they can relate to, and they walk out of the movie feeling a little bit better about themselves and their family and their choices, those kind of things. Or even just good versus evil, that you watch somebody face an obstacle that looks greater than them, but they overcome it. That's what we love. We love to see stories about people overcoming. And so when that's the focus, I do think, but that's not for everybody. There's a lot of movies that aren't about that. They have a more niche, that are more specific to certain things. But it's hard to make those, in my mind, it's hard to make those stories that are for a small audience universally a mega movie. Does that make sense? Like, it's hard to take something that's meant for a specific group and make it universally a blockbuster. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I think that's what we've been kind of dealing with. I don't know. It's hard to figure this out sometimes. It's just, but I'm glad that, man, in the deluge of negative news a lot lately, it's great that there's a hit.
Yeah.
It's great and things that everybody can get around. I do think that we can talk a little bit more about this movie and who it's for and who went to see it. There have been some reports out on stuff like that and who it's best for. Even from the numbers, I thought it looked like a lot of teenagers and young adults have seen the movie more than children. Maybe people are waiting to see, like, where does this go? Just theme-wise, will my kids understand it? Is it just something to wait and bring them to watch online when it comes to Disney Plus? But it has. I mean, there are a lot of things that we could talk about here. There's a lot of things.
Easton, would you be buying the stock right now, or would you be cautious, or would you be selling?
I think I would buy. I think I would cautiously buy because, with all the other things that have been going on, everything is so, like, there's no in between really with everything Disney is doing right now. Now, Inside Out 2, I think, can help them out. And I think that Deadpool is going to help them out a lot. I think just based off of, like, if they can take the kind of feedback that they get from Inside Out 2 and maybe what they get from Deadpool and can apply it to their next, handful of projects that they're working on, or if they can find a way to apply it to the parks in some way, then it would be a really good time to buy, because we're starting to swing back over to the side where it's like they're doing phenomenal on all cylinders.
Well, this article this Motley Fool article I was referencing talks of the 4 reasons they give to buy the stock are: 1, that the management proxy battles with Nelson Peltz are over, and that was just a thing that was just kind of overhanging just turmoil. I know we have different opinions on whether that would have been a good or bad thing, because we haven't really, I think we all agree we haven't really trusted Disney management for a few years. Number 2, it cites, but that's in the past, so at least there's stability, right? The second thing is, it says its streaming business is profitable and increasingly so, that finally Disney Plus and Hulu together are now making money, even if it's just barely. But that trajectory looks like it's moving in the right direction. The third thing is Disney's finally making its move with ESPN. That people, even cord cutters, are finding ways to keep their live sports in play. And finally, they cite that Disney stock seems to be undervalued by most analysts. And that is it. And they actually cite in here that the parks actually look weaker. That the parks are kind of losing their favor with large audiences, which is a weird thing to say in here. But you mentioned, David, I think the theme of this episode could be, is this the worst time to be a Disney? It kind of goes with this article with the investments too. Is this the worst time to be a Disney fan? And we were talking about that a little bit yesterday. And in order to say the worst time, you have to compare it to other times, right? And the first thing I think of is the era right pre-COVID, right? Where Disney released billion-dollar movie after billion-dollar movie. Let me read you some. What to watch from 2019 and 2020. You have Star Wars, right? The Rise of Skywalker. You have Spider-Man Far From Home comes out within that window, of that 2-year window. You have the two big Marvel movies, Endgame and back to back with Infinity War. You have, just hit after hit after hit.
And all the live action animated movies, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, all billion-dollar big movies.
Billion-dollar big movies. Remarkable, and just they could not miss. And then COVID happens. And it seemed like, I remember, I'm looking back. I remember this is right when our podcast started, right before COVID happened.
Right.
And you had Call of the Wild. We did a review on that. You can go back and listen to one of our early episodes where we talk about Call of the Wild, which I thought was fantastic. Not a blockbuster hit, but I thought it was really good. You have Onward, which came out the week. I think it's still one of the most underrated Pixar movies that didn't get its life. That summer you had Soul come out. And then you had the straight to Disney Plus. The Mulan, remember live action Mulan, which was actually pretty well done too, that I don't think gets credit because of when it came out and the headwinds it was facing.
And it got a lot of political backlash. There was just a lot of,
You're right.
And a lot of those movies, even the live action movies that were such blockbuster, the Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, a couple years later, people started being a lot more negative about it. Like, we don't want more of this. This is more. Why do we need remakes of movies that, so they're blockbusters, but give it like 4 years and people are complaining about them, and they're not really watching them.
Well, you're right, and I think another thing that goes right along with that is, I don't mind a expensive live action that's gonna not be awesome, as long as you've got 18 awesome Marvel movies I can go watch too, right? I think what happened is the quality generally has fallen off to the extent where we only see these live actions, and it kind of seems like a cheap rerun, right? Or just can we think of an original idea, and not even Marvel. People get fatigued with the Marvel stuff too, but I kind of have always said, and this has kind of been I don't care if it's Marvel, I don't care if it's a franchise, I don't care if it's a sequel, I don't care if it's remaking, whatever it is. If it's great, people will watch it. That's why Inside Out 2 is so refreshing, is because this is a sequel. It's a Pixar movie. We have a track record of these being duds recently, and they've hit it out of the park because they just made something good that's connecting, it seems like, right? And that's all we want.
Yeah. I do think that sometimes you have a blockbuster that's not necessarily great, but it comes out in a drought. And so everybody goes, but that doesn't mean that necessarily in time it's going to be everybody's favorite movie ever. And I'll use those live action animated movies. You rarely hear somebody say my favorite is the live action remake of so and so.
That's a great point.
But they all did great. They all did great at the box office. We all went for the entertainment factor. But usually people walk away going, it was good, but I still love the original better. It's that, or even something like Barbie. Everybody went to see Barbie, and everybody went to see Oppenheimer. But does anybody say? Maybe I'm sure there are some people, but where is Barbie is my favorite movie of all time, and Oppenheimer is my favorite. There's a lot of people went, and so I think Inside Out. You have to wait on all of these and go, where will the percentages go in the next 3 or 4 years to decide whether it's really great, or whether everybody was just really wanting to see it because they were like, hey, it's Riley and it's joy and sadness again. Let's go. I mean, it's like it's familiar. It's like going to see another Toy Story movie. You still want to go.
Is that maybe I'm wrong, but I've never viewed Inside Out as sequel worthy. Like, I thought it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I never saw. Oh, this is a franchise. There's going to be 5 of these movies. That it's kind of surprising when they said Inside Out too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't seem like Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or Incredibles or Cars that are just lends itself to a new franchise, right?
Well,
but I
they
don't
set
see
it
the
up,
numbers.
They set up the first movie. You know, when you go through all these things with Riley and her parents, and they're like, they make it through that movie, and the last comment's like, you know, "Woo, we got through this. I mean, what else could there be?" And you know, like, oh no, she's gonna turn a teenager. So they set it up really strong for a sequel, and everybody's going. But then you're also going, oh man, that could be a hit, or they could go down a path that people are like, whoa, that's a little much. You just never know. You never know how they're gonna treat a story and how deep they're gonna go. And it's like Turning Red had a lot of those same issues. It's about middle school era and preteen and becoming a teenager themes. And so, you know, it did not, you know, of course it was released to Disney Plus. It doesn't get a chance to compete. But even when they re-released it in the theaters, people just didn't go.
Right.
So we have a whole different thing here. I do think the word got out pretty quickly that the movie was good. I think that when reviews are positive, you don't have a lot of negative criticism online. People are willing to go, and they're willing to take their kids, and they're willing to pay for it because it's just so expensive. I do think that also, if you have daughters, I remember taking my girls to see Inside Out. So to go back with them and you see this and you talk about, we had lots of family discussions after this, just about, you know, what we saw and what kids go through and what teenagers go through and how things have changed even in the past 10 years. With you know, why life is stressful, and is it more stressful now than it was 10 years ago for a teenager? So a lot of those issues come into play in this. And you know, when the movie first hit, there was a lot of talk everywhere I would turn online. There was a lot of, because they announced that one of the new main characters was anxiety, and so there was a lot of backlash against that. Like, is this appropriate for children? Do they need to hear of something that a lot of people consider a disorder? Is that an emotion, or is that fear? Is that the fear emotion on overdrive? You know where will they go with this? And I thought, I mean, I have to be I mean, really for me, it was just, I thought they handled it really well. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I want you to see it, then we'll come back, because I think once you've seen it, we'll have some great discussions on just the themes of the movie. I mean, in both Inside Out and Inside Out 2, some of the best parts are just, they make you think about like what do you do with a bad memory? What do you do with you know, what do you do with your emotions? How do you work through them? How do you control them? I mean, all of those things are in both of these movies. You know, I think those are great things for people to think about, and great things for families to sit down and talk about and say, hey, let's talk about this. I thought that this movie was very, especially if you have teenage girls, I would, great conversations you could have. But even if you've got 4 teenage boys like you, this is a great movie to take and say, how do you feel?
Teenage boy, only one. The rest of them are not teenagers yet. Don't make me that
they're close
old.
enough. Or about close enough. Going to be. Yes, you're not. Yes, I agree. But going to be one teen and several approaching that middle school era. And so it's good. I mean, even to talk about, like, how do you handle anxiety? How do you handle, or even if you want to call it worry, how do you deal with this? And you know, what about boys and girls? Because this is a hugely female cast. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of Riley and her friends and their friend groups, and they're finding their place in their community of other female students. And so that's the majority of the cast. So, but I still think you could take your boys and talk about even how they deal with it, or how do boys and girls, do they deal with anxiety differently? How do they, you know, what do you think, and talk with them about that. So I thought that was one of the best things. I did think it was more, and I talked to somebody who's a counselor who also said it probably is a better preteen, middle school kind of movie, that some kids might not understand this. I mean, if you're a child, you just might not understand it. So there's some questions there, who it's really best for. I think they obviously hit their target market because it's blown up, and so there are a lot of teenagers and young adults going to see it. Lots of nostalgia. I mean, I think the demographics show that there've been a lot of 13 to 34-year-olds seeing this movie, and a lot of women seeing this movie. So it's found a great target audience, and I think it will probably get close to $1 billion if it's this big so far. It will probably do it.
That was funny because usually, I asked my, told the family on Sunday, hey, we should go see Inside Out too. And usually I'm gauging, what typically happens is my youngest are like, yeah, they just want to go see a movie and eat popcorn. They don't care what it is. And they barely remember Inside Out to begin with, right? And then usually, my oldest, Wyatt, who's jumped on here a couple times, he's like, depending on the movie, I don't want to go with my family. It's that whole like, I'll just stay home, or whatever. Or that movie doesn't really excite me, or I'm a teenager now and I want to see something blowing up. Surprisingly, I said, hey, you want to go see Inside Out too? And he was like, immediately like, yeah. All my friends say it's great. Which is, he's about to be 16 years old. It really surprised me, which tells me there's some buzz going on, that he's already very familiar with the advertising, has already heard from his friends that it's really good and worth seeing, and really would like to see it himself, which was really telling to me, because he is not a TV he doesn't consume media like you and I do, David. Maybe he does like Easton does, but he's in a different world.
Way more gaming, probably.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hey, one other thing I thought that was really good, Easton, I want you to jump in here and talk about what you like, but one other thing that I thought was really refreshing about this, and I'll talk about this more once you've seen it, is the art of animation was just back to me better. And I don't know, I mean, animation is a crazy thing, because it's taking familiar faces and hands, and you're animating these characters that aren't exactly human, but they have to be human enough for you to kind of go, oh yeah, I get that. And I do think that Inside Out was one of the better Pixar just human character, and the style of the animation is just good, whereas some of the movies like Onward, even though I like Onward, and Turning Red, they have a more of a cartoonish, I call it that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Everybody looks like that. They look like they're made out of Play-Doh. They don't look really human. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a design thing. I mean, there's lots of different animation styles, but there's something about the Inside Out. It's kind of like the live action characters in Toy Story 4 or 3. They start really looking like, ooh, man, this is they move. They're just, everything is very human, and their expressions, and so there's a lot of that, and just the scenery, it's beautiful. I mean, there's just such great art in it, and so I was like, man, that's so good to see that back, where you see a moment where like just a shot on the screen will be like, man, that was beautiful right there. It wasn't as cartoonish as some things can be, and that means all of them have their place. Different stories tell better with different styles, but I love that coming back. I love that they kept the story, even though it kind of has its niche. There's a lot of things everybody can relate to and understand. So, Easton, what was your favorite things?
Well, yeah, that was what you just said there right at the end was probably one of my most favorite things. Was going into it, it is a predominantly a female cast, but it's what it's dealing with is like the all these emotions. It's something that is not just for girls. Guys deal with emotion too, and even if it's differently, it's always good to see, like, just seeing the emotions interact with each other and seeing how their interactions are affected by how Riley is feeling in that moment. Being able to look at that and go, oh, I understand that feeling. I just love going to something that, looking back to Zootopia, I always say Zootopia, in my opinion, is probably a perfect movie. Same with, I don't know if Inside Out 2 is a perfect movie, but same with Inside Out 2, how it's like they're giving you this story that is really easy to connect with in a way where they don't have to tell you, like they don't have to paint it on a board what they're doing. You can just see it and go, "Oh, yeah, yeah. That makes so much sense."
Right.
Which is one of my favorite things about it, is that it's a universal connection. Anyone can kind of take something from it and be like, I get that.
We did talk about, when we came out of the movie, one thing. It was a group of 5 of us, and that everybody was like, "Man, you're kind of on edge the whole time." Like right from the beginning, her emotions are going bonkers. Just from the beginning, she's with her friends, and the drama starts right from the beginning, and she's dealing with her parents, and she's dealing with the just changes in her just in her emotions, but then she's hitting conflict after conflict, and everybody was like, "Man, I'm tired." I mean, that was like from the beginning, it never really lets up. Like every time you think, like, movies have these mountains and valleys, and this one just kind of felt like it was just pushing buttons all the way. Did you feel that way, Easton? Like it just felt like emotional the whole time.
I felt like it was I don't know if I felt necessarily like on edge, like anxious
Yeah.
for the most of the movie. But I did feel like it was a constant uphill the entire time.
Yeah. I guess it's if you're as we had some in our group that are pretty empathetic. So if you feel things that other characters are feeling, you would feel some of that all the way through. But it's
Agreed.
good. It's good.
Well, let me ask you this: Is it like Inside Out 1? Is there any tearful moments? Is there any time where you had to reach for the Kleenex or go like this a little bit?
Different than the first movie. It was to me if I had cried or had a tear, it would have been like a happy one. You know what I mean? Like there was no like. Did you? I don't want to give anything away, but Easton,
Okay.
was there any great loss that? I mean, I know what you're talking about in Inside Out 1. That was devastating. That was a devastating cry for a lot of people. I think one thing that's really different in this, and again, it's different because you're dealing Inside Out 1. She's a child, so you're watching this child let go of her childhood, and so everybody was like imaginary friends, your goofy island, your how you relate to your parents. You're just dealing. You're immediately going, "Oh, how did I do that?" And so there's some tear jerkers in that first one that I don't think it's quite the same thing because she's so much more. I mean, she starts out pretty sarcastic. I mean, because she's already kind of on edge with her parents, and so she's a little bit less. I would call her her likability is just different. You're
She's like a
sympathetic with
teenager.
her. Yeah. So you're not. She's not cute.
Yeah.
She's not cute. I mean, there's several times you're going, she's not. She is not going to do that. No, she is not going to do that. Oh, she did it. Like she makes choices that you're like, well, that's not the little Riley I watched in the first movie. I don't know. But maybe it was. I mean, she did some mischievous things in the first movie too. But it's just you're watching her at a different phase, and so kids are. You're kind of going, "Ah, she's so cute," and then this one you're watching more of that. Oh man, she's got some attitude. Look at how she just treated that person. That wasn't really kind. So you're working through that, but I think across the end, you get to the end. I thought there were some. I want to talk about it more when you've seen it because I thought the final push of the movie was a great lesson for everybody.
I thought so too.
Just with your emotions, and that's when I was like, wow, I didn't expect him quite to do that. And it's just, it's about your emotions and whether they're going to control you or not. And so I just thought the way they handled it at the end was really touching, and maybe it definitely wasn't a cry like the law, like a loss would be, but it's more like oh man, that was poignant. If you shed a tear, it's because it's poignant and you can identify with it.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to do the next episode. Will probably be a review, a full review episode, which I miss those. Those are some of my favorite ones of Inside Out too. So I'm excited about this.
All right. Well, I hope you guys can see it, and I can't wait to hear what your guys think of it. And
here's another thing that is really interesting, I think, to me. This is the Why I Love Disney podcast, and it's been a little while since we've had a discussion like that where we were excited about something we had seen from Disney and just expressed the greatness of it, right?
Right.
And that brings the question of, is this the worst time to be a Disney fan? I think we're encouraged by Inside Out 2 for sure. But to contrast that, I hate to bring it up. It almost seems like a dirty word at this point, but you know, there's the Acolyte on Disney Plus, the Star Wars franchise, which is absolutely being obliterated in review articles I've seen. Now, some people say people are being too harsh. It's people bombing the reviews, whatever. But for people to take the time to bomb the reviews, there has to be a dang good reason to do it, I think. Again, we should full disclosure, none of us had seen this yet, right? You guys have not seen this at all.
But I feel like I have, because I watch so much content on. I just decided to go ahead and watch the content to see if I really wanted to watch this. And I've watched some positive content, but there's so much more negative content out there about it. And I wanted to see what everybody was mad at. And it doesn't look like anything you pull apart and you show a clip or a scene and people are laughing at it, then you start going, well, man, I don't know if I have time for that. And again, These are things that I go, why would a corporation and entertainment mega like Disney do this stuff? Why would they do this? And again, it's like, instead of going, who's our target market? It's like, well, we know who the target market is, and so we're going to do the exact opposite of what most Star Wars, and you know, that's their choice, and I don't get it. I mean, I like Star Wars. I mean, I grew up with the first 3 films. I haven't read all the books. I haven't watched all the animated stuff. So
I just the toys.
Yeah, I did have the action figures actually.
Okay. Right.
But actually, when I do watch Star Wars, which is why I liked The Mandalorian so much when it first started, it gave me those nostalgic feels for the Star Wars that I did know and did like.
Right.
And so, you know, we get like a season or 2, and then it just goes off like, what in the world? It just doesn't even feel like the same tone. It doesn't feel like what happened. I really didn't like the way the second trilogy. I didn't like where it went. It was just dark to me, and it was like, you know, why? I mean, and I could give you so many analogies of, would you take another another fan base and just totally go a different direction and totally, I mean, no. I mean, this is one of the rare things you've seen this. I mean, it always feels like it's Star Wars, Marvel. They've done it with Marvel. You could go, well, you know, it's why Harry Potter did well. I mean, thankfully, if you're a Harry Potter fan, that J.K. Rowling held on and said, no, I get final say. You know, you're not going to change my story. You're not gonna go off, and for people that love that story, it's kind of protected right now. But where Star Wars is, it's like they can just totally rewrite the story and say everything you thought about this, everything you've loved for 40 years, we're just gonna change it. Yeah. It's not that anymore. Yeah. And that's you know, I'm glad that I'm not so heavily invested in Star Wars.
Do you plan to watch it at all, David?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll wait and see how it does. But so far, it just looks like I don't know. It just did not look appealing to me. It looked poorly written. I don't like things that are poorly written.
Well,
there's too much great stuff. It's like anything, like music. I mean, there's so much content everywhere you turn now. One of my goals, as I was started even this year and into the next couple of years, I'm like, I got so little time to watch stuff. What do I really want to invest my time in? Are there great films that I've never seen that are worth more of my time than this new stuff? Yeah. There's TV series that I haven't seen that I've heard great things about. I don't know. And I'm a big Disney supporter, so you know, I've watched everything they've put out. This will be like the first thing that I've just gone, no, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do it. I've watched Ahsoka. I've watched Andor. I've watched all of everything else that they put out. I've watched all the Marvel series. As mediocre as some of it is, I've watched every bit of it and tried to
Yep.
give it a chance as a fan. But I'm kind of to the end of that.
When I see headlines like this Forbes article, it says The Acolyte Episode 3 review, one of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made.
Phew.
And then it goes on to talk about the dialogue and how terribly it's written and just like cheese fest. Now, to be fair, Star Wars has always been a bit of a cheese fest.
True.
Yes.
As far as dialogue goes. But that's not that. That's saying something. And I'm a Star Wars fan. Like, I'm probably going to watch it at some point just to see if it's as bad as it's one of those like train wreck kind of things. I want to see if it's that bad. I do think the whole witches, the Night Sister order is an interesting angle. And I do think there's precedent in the Star Wars universe for trying something new. I think Rogue One and Andor is a great example of that. But I think most people, fans and critics, will agree Rogue One and Andor is the best of Star Wars. Right? It's so well written. It's so well imagined. It's something that whenever I run into somebody with a Star Wars shirt on, and we're like, comparing our Star Wars fandom, and I ask, what's your favorite all time? They usually give me one movie that they're nostalgic for, and then they say Rogue One. Almost always. It's what I say. Rogue One is just something incredible altogether. And honestly, I think as time goes on, Andor, other than maybe Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and Andor are the best Star Wars series made yet. So to see this about the Acolyte is really disappointing. I probably will check it out at some point. But here's my biggest beef. And Easton, I'll let you jump into and add to this. The biggest thing with the last trilogy, right? It could have been great. I love The Force Awakens. The first of the three, they said, it had all the feels. Harrison Ford's back. Carrie Fisher's back. The whole deal. It's just amazing. And then this stupid Last Jedi movie comes out, and Rian Johnson just changes all the rules. And then they have to come back in The Rise of Skywalker and try to fix that mess. And I feel like they wasted it. Yeah, we all saw it. It made a ton of money. But it's just not great. And they just did, and I feel like there's a comparison to be made with The Last Jedi and this Acolyte series, that they're trying to rewrite the rules of the Jedi. There seems to be some political agendas involved, and we can't let Anakin have all the power, and so we have to make this a little more fair for whatever oppressed group is out there that doesn't feel like they're represented in the Star Wars universe. And honestly, that's a bunch of crap, in my opinion, and that's someone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So there we go.
It's the biggest challenge, and they bring all this stuff up, and then they start blaming the fan base for being too whatever. But the point is, anytime you take any hero who's been established for 30, 40 years, whether it's Batman or Harry Potter or Luke Skywalker, and suddenly you try to make it look like he's the washed up old bad guy or female. And I think it's because some of these characters are male, it looks like that. But I think any character, if you do that, it just disrupts people. And it would be like if they came out with the next Harry Potter and said, well, you know what? You thought Harry was the hero, but actually Voldemort was the hero. And he was really the good guy, and he was just misunderstood. That's a lot. I think that's what the Star Wars fan base feels like. Everything you've admired about these characters, suddenly they're telling you, oh, they're not that. They're just flawed characters, and they're not, and I think that just people lose heart. They don't want to see it anymore. It's like, man, you just took our heroes and crushed them. I don't want to watch this anymore. I'll just watch the movies that I loved.
Absolutely. And again, the whole thing about Star Wars is we're talking about aliens here. Almost everybody has a British accent, which is weird. You're talking about there's blue people, green people of all shapes and sizes. There's all sorts of there's furry creatures. There's everything imaginable. Like, how could we be like, well, I don't know. Don't even like. The Force is for everybody. No, the Force isn't for everybody. They're for a special order called Jedi who fight against the dark side. That's the story. Don't give me this gray area.
There's no dark side. Everything wants to be gray. Nobody wants the dark and light. People want to be able to say, I like the dark better. And you have to prove that. If you don't like the dark better, you're something's wrong with you.
If you like the dark better, good for you. At least you're honest. You know what I mean? Don't give me they're both It's all subjective. Don't give me that. You know what I'm saying? It's always been simple. Don't gray it up. And that's kind of my point.
Well, and we've seen that. We've talked about it before. The whole you've talked about it, your childhood. That whole you have these heroes, and then you start watching heroes be portrayed. Even back in the '90s, they start the anti-hero, and is Batman the hero or is Batman the? Wait a minute, what are they doing to these characters that wrestlers? Everybody. It's like
Hulk Hogan.
They shift
Hollywood.
and suddenly like what happened, and so. I don't know. We saw it even with like Maleficent. Which was a fine film. I mean, it was okay for what it was. But is Maleficent evil, or is she had a lot of trauma and she was misunderstood? And sometimes it's done well, and you kind of go, "Oh, that is a good story."
Right. Well, like Wicked comes to mind. The whole Broadway thing, that's the movie's coming out, right? Where the whole thing from the Wicked Witch's perspective, which is an interesting, like it can be done in a way that is interesting. Like you get the Joker story, which I do not recommend, but it's fascinating because you see the mind of this crazed villain, this depraved person, and how it just devolves into madness, right? So I think there's a story to be told, even a bit of sympathy and empathy for some of these characters. I mean, even Darth Vader himself ends up being an empathetic character. Like you're sympathetic for him because we find that it was in the anger of losing a wife and the poison of a mentor who's feeding him this hatred. That ultimately causes the turmoil inside him to turn to the dark side, right? And it's this battle between being light and dark. I think there's room for all of these things to be explored. It's just when we start to just shrug our shoulders and be like, it's all relative, that I think it starts to lose its magic. And I think actually intuitively, whether we want to admit it or not, I think intuitively all know that's not the case. Now there's complexities in all of us, in every single one of us. None of us are all good or all bad, right? There's most of us are somewhere in between or teeter between the two, and those are things that stories and writers can explore, and sometimes it's done well and sometimes it's not. But I'm really disappointed in what I'm hearing from the Acolyte so far. But I am fascinated with the Night Sisters, and I will probably watch it at some point, and I'll try to keep an open mind when I do, and hopefully it's not as bad. Usually sometimes when your expectations are super low, you're like, it wasn't that bad. Or when they're super high, they don't meet them. So hopefully it's something like that. But I don't know. We'll see. Like you said, David, there's a lot of time to spend on a lot of media these days. So we'll see what happens.
Well, there's so many things that I still want to see that I've never seen. And so I just have to really weigh it out and go, I've got to stop, just watching stuff because it's, somebody else says it. I got to really check it out and make sure it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes things like harder to watch or makes things really frustrating to watch, and again, I haven't seen The Acolyte, so I don't know for sure. This is all based off of reviews that I've seen that we've talked about outside of recording, but it's when you start to kind of shift main plot points, like you, Dustin, you were talking about with the Force, like how talking about you could get a story where someone goes, well, dark side, light side, it's all relative. There's this different, the Force isn't even real, something crazy like that, where it seemed like a review that I read, and I wish I could remember where it was from, but it talked about one of the episodes of The Acolyte, some kind of plot point in The Acolyte downplays Anakin's storyline of him being the chosen one, whatever main characteristic of Anakin that makes him the chosen one. You're like, okay, so there's more than one chosen one because something about it is the same as Anakin, which is where it really makes things frustrating. Like, no, you can't. That's the reason Anakin's the chosen one. And obviously, I don't know, but that's what I'm reading is like, he's the chosen one. You can't have something similar to that happening because that messes up this story.
You're exactly right, and that's what The Last Jedi was attempting to do.
Yeah,
was to make the Force more egalitarian. Like this happens all the time. It's now, and thankfully, I actually think The Rise of Skywalker they did as good a job as they could possibly do, given what they were handed from The Last Jedi. But I do think it was, and it's not. I wouldn't call it a great movie, but The Rise of Skywalker, at very least, keeps in line the whole bloodline, with her being Palpatine's, spoiler alert, that kind of thing. So I do appreciate that. right? Um, but I'm with you. Like when we were trying, if we had gone down the road that Ryan Johnson was trying to go down, and we had ended that trilogy with, well, it just randomly found this chick, and there's nothing special about her,
Yeah.
but she's just more powerful than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? That would have might have ruined the franchise, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I actually I do believe that I am excited for some of the new Star Wars things that are kind of in the pike. I think there's a new Mandalorian season that, and as long as oh gosh, what's the director's name? What's the guy who the main producer, the dude who
Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni?
Jon Favreau. As long as he's involved, I know it's going to be, because he's a fan. He's a comic book fan. I think he gets it.
Well, I'll be honest, I'll give it all a shot, but I've lost my hope in Mandalorian. I don't know where it's going now. I think it's lost. I don't think he has the control that he had. I think those first 2 seasons were great. And then I enjoyed, I hear a lot of negative comment about the Boba Fett series. I kind of liked it. I liked it. Ming-Na Wen? I like her character. I liked all that. I thought it was, I could tell it was like, oh, we're still going to move forward. So I liked all that. But then it's just like it just went off a cliff. I don't get it. It's like the writing, again, changes. One thing I also wanted to say is that about the Acolyte, when I saw some of the writing, again, it's about the tone of it. What's the tone? Have they changed the tone that is disruptive? But then also, is the writing good? And I kept seeing people put these clips together. Again, everything gets analyzed so much that once you watch a clip where they're tearing down the writing, it makes you go, I don't know if I want to see that. Where like they show one scene where they go, she's too young to know that. And then within 5 minutes, they'll say, she's old enough to know. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not good writing. That's not good continuity. They have opened up, or about to open up, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I sent you guys a clip of Disney Parks POV ride-through. Did you guys ever watch it?
I have not watched it yet.
But
y'all keep talking. I'll watch it right here while we're sitting here.
Well, it's about 9 minutes, and this will take us through. I just want to. You've ridden Splash Mountain, right?
Yes. Oh,
just
yeah.
to clarify,
Many times.
You've many times.
Mm-hmm.
And so watch this, and we can talk about again. So this has been one of the most divisive things I've ever seen in Disney and on YouTube and Disney fandom of whether this is a good attraction or not. Again, I think the extremes always come out swinging. People that hate it, people that love it. But again, continuity of writing and continuity of theme, whether something's great or not. So as we transfer from Acolyte to Tiana's, this got there were definitely a lot of people that Disney brought in a ton of influencers, people that have Disney vlogs, people that have, like Tim Tracker, that have 1 million subscribers, and put everybody on there. And of course, I did not see a negative review from a lot of those vloggers. There were a lot of vloggers that I watched that were like, this was, it's okay, it's good. Do I think it's as good as the original? There were a few that said, no, I don't think it's as good as the original, but it's good, it's fine. I saw a ton of people just hating on it like crazy. But most of the people that were disliking it weren't disliking that, again, that it's Tiana. It's that they're not loving that they don't think it's a great attraction. So, again, all I'm saying is, like, the past few weeks between all the Tiana stuff and the Acolyte stuff and the news stories about that they're cutting entertainment from the parks, like Disneyland, they slashed like the shows in the Marvel Land, the whole Spider-Man adventure thing where you see him fly through the air, the Doctor Strange. They've cut all that entertainment. The stuff with Epcot opening and people being negative about, they've spent millions and millions and millions on this new Epcot refurb, and there's just really nothing there except an event center and Moanas. And so then all the Tiana stuff, it's just been a lot of negative lately. So I'm grateful that we have Inside Out and that we've had like a good, like, whew, I needed some good Disney happy magic to talk to my family about.
Well, I fall under your third option of how people are reacting to it based off of the video you sent us. I don't care. I really don't care that it's Gianna's, but when I was watching it today, and I found myself going, I'm just gonna skip to the next part, like skipping parts of the video because there's literally there is nothing to watch.
That's what I'm doing right now.
I would have to skip. I go, oh, there's an animatronic, and skip and to that point so I could watch that next part. And I felt like even if it was like 10 or 15 seconds at a time, that's a slow ride, and it's a long ride. So the fact that I'm skipping a lot of parts of it is like, yikes.
Now, one thing that I thought was crazy about this Disney Parks put out this POV before any of the vloggers, these guys that make their living showing you ride videos on YouTube, and they did this first. And it's the craziest thing. It's like they've mounted a camera on the front of the boat, so all you can see is straight forward. You can't look side to side. It's like it's like a straightforward shot. So there are just scenes where like you're looking at an animatronic that looks like it's 20 or 30 feet away from you and slowly approaching it. And so I thought that was kind of weird that they did that. I think there have been a lot better videos shot by, vloggers that make it look a lot better than Disney did. I don't know why they chose to do that. But man, the backlash has just been bonkers. Now, again, there were tons of people loving on it and saying, if you don't like this ride, there's something wrong with you. But I did think it looked like there was a lot of dead space, and I also thought the story. One of the things that was so good about the original was the story was actually great. Now I think over time, because of the sound and because they think of the parks as so international that people aren't going to understand any of this story anyway because everybody doesn't speak English. But if you listen to the original soundtrack of Splash Mountain, he makes this obvious choice that like life isn't very good. He's got to move on. He's got to go somewhere else. And the whole story about is you can't run from trouble. You gotta, and that's why he ends up back home. And he's like, this is where I need to be. So he goes on this kind of journey of danger because and even there's moments where the characters are singing like, Bear Rabbit, you're making a big mistake. You're venturing off, and so all of that kind of story is gone. This is like, now we've just like, hey, let's go find some characters for our band.
So does the villain ever appear on the ride?
No, he does not, and that's another thing.
Interesting.
Well, first they said it was because people said, well, he met his demise at the end of the story, at the end of the movie, and this is 10 years later. She's now got her restaurant and she started her own business, and she's a restaurateur, and she started this co-op, and it's all about food and bringing other people up, and like they've got like all these storylines that they're going down with her future. And again, we've talked about this before, like, again, who really wants to go to Harry Potter and see this isn't Hogwarts of Harry, this is Harry's children. He's older now, and it's
sort of Galaxy's Edge-esque, right? It's kind of like
they love to do that on everything. It's like, well, we're not going to give you that story you wanted to go into. We're going to give you a new story. And it's like, well, that was a really good story. I don't know. But they also made, there's someone at Disney made the comment that they're getting away from any movie with a religious reference. And Voodoo, Dr. Facilier's Voodoo and Mama Odie's Voodoo had to be cut because it's problematic. So we've gone from one problematic movie and we've put it with a movie that they've already deemed is problematic. So that was confusing to me. Again, it's not the story. I think the animatronics look great. Man, the final scene looks really good. with all those animatronics, that looks really fun. But the pacing of the ride looked very slow, and compared to what you're used to, because that original attraction is just full of color, and if you're not looking at characters, you're looking at a character's home. There's just lots of things happening and things to see, and they've gone from 75 animatronics to like 20. And a lot of there are a lot of animatronics, but there are a lot of, it's the same character over and over. Like you see that little furry character, and then he's at the end too. That a lot of the animatronics that they made are very basic. They have like maybe their head moves like It's a Small World doll. They're very basic. And the other thing, I was just telling Easton before we started today, I was watching this video of someone who put together a little montage of everything that's broken. It's either already broken or has been broken. And it was like a 7 or 8 minute video of just brokenness. And I mean, this is just barely getting going. And this person, this is somebody who has probably 1,000 subscribers. And like this video has been watched like 30,000 times. So people are starting to notice this. So I think the thing that bothered me most though was that like the theme song was, something about the special spice, because the original story was that you were looking for spices for a recipe, but then they changed the story to you're looking for band members, but then the story and the song and it's all just kind of all over the place. It just like, it's that same thing. It's just lost. It seems like the continuity of it is it bad? No. Is it a 10? I don't know. It's like Inside Out. It's like, it's a billion people are going to go see it. Is it a 10? I don't know. Might be an 8. This Tiana's, I'm not sure yet. I got to ride it. I think you're going out there soon, hopefully. So maybe you'll be able to tell us if you get there before I do.
I guess what we need to do is the three of us need to just do like a business trip to Disney.
Yeah.
For the sake of this podcast.
We're looking for sponsors. If anyone would like to sponsor that, you can reach us at whyIloveDisney.com, and you could just we'll say your company name. We'll say your personal name over and over and over. We'll get T-shirts with your face on it. If you will sponsor that trip for us to fully review Tiana's Bayou adventure. But I do think it's a great conversation.
I think there's just been a lot lately. So I'm to start where we came around. It's like let's just be grateful as we go out for all the negativity I've seen lately. It's great that Inside Out's doing well. It makes me feel like I'm pulling for a winning team again.
I hear you. Well, we would love for you to write in and let us know if you think now is the worst time to be a Disney fan, or are we out of our mind? Is this the best time to be a Disney fan? I think you're out of your mind if you think that, but I'd love to hear from you. I really would. We value your opinion, and this is called Why I Love Disney, and you can find us at whyilovedisney.com. We appreciate you listening, and we can't wait to be with you next time. We probably are going in-depth on the movie Inside Out, too. So, guys, I got to go get my kids so I can head to the theater. As always, man, I love hanging out with you guys and discussing this stuff. I hope you've had a good time as well. And until next time, so long.